All right, well, hey, here we are again 1 week later. Thanks for coming back. Short agenda, and we need to be done by 4:30 today. So really starting to focus in on things now where we're going to look at a number of different ideas for tables and hopefully be able to make some decisions about what we want things to look like in this meeting. Sound good?
Mm-hmm.
All righty. Shannon, I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Okay, so the first one is the same one that we looked at last week. That's the current salary schedule. There were a couple of different discussions going on. I think Dylan might have been the one suggesting that we have a front end loaded where you don't skip years in the beginning, but then maybe once you get further on, we kind of slow that trajectory a little bit. So that's what that second one looks like. And we do drop off year 14 on the next two, but what happens is it's a larger jump from 11 to 13. So the overall ending amount is still the same. I shouldn't say ending, but last lane, that would be applicable.
Lower right-hand corner.
Yes, hasn't
Okay.
changed. Then the next one, oops, sorry. The next one would be the inverse of that, where you see some staggering in the beginning years, but once you get to year 9, feel that you've made a commitment to the district, that we anticipate you probably staying for a long period of time, so then taking away that every other year component. And this one we did leave year 14. Last one is just in every other year slowing that trajectory down of increases.
But a year shorter time to get to the top.
Yes. Yep.
So are those pretty reflective of what we talked about at the last meeting, that we wanted to see some examples? Okay. What do you think? Anything pop out at you as you view those different models?
I worry about, because we block out, that if you, for example, you start at step 1 with the bachelor's, year 2 you don't get a raise, well, essentially you're taking a step back because of prices increasing. That's,
Okay.
I worry about that.
But you have to remember though, run it up to the top one, please, the current one. What we talked about in the last meeting was part of what would make the current model, what we talked about is that not being sustainable would be, we couldn't, as a district, afford to do that and the CPI
Okay.
increases over time.
Okay.
So it's kind of like that current table, if that were what we were to say we wanted to do, it would look like that for some time into the future. I mean, the numbers would look like that for some
So
time
you're
in the
saying
future.
if we block stuff out, the CPI would be?
Then I think we would have a little shift in focus then, saying that the hope would be that the board would award that consumer price
Right.
index increase.
So
So
these
that
are not
would,
losing ground.
so that would move up it as those increases came, yeah.
So the 2% then would be applied to each of the individual cells, and then you move as those cells. As you move.
Which, going with that particular model where you have the CPI applied to it, benefits those people, also benefits those people who are already maxed out at the top level. Otherwise, they just sit there,
Yes.
kind of stuck for that length of duration of time. Where if you do block out, and we can give everybody something in terms of that CPI, so it's not like they're completely stuck at step 1. They might get that 2% increase, and the
Right.
grid would look different. Am I following? Okay.
Yeah. So we know the CPI for contracts that begin on the 1st of July 2018, 2.13%. And you also remember that changes every year, but that's what it looks like in the near-term future. So that would be the hope, that the board would get into that pattern of granting those increases, and then everybody has an opportunity to move forward. So those that would get to that bottom right wouldn't be stuck at that figure for however long that would need to be.
Okay, can we see the bottom one?
The every 2 years, or
No, just the, or once
This
they
is the
reach
bottom.
9 years, there's no more block
yep.
out.
Okay, hold on.
There we go.
There you go.
Big deal.
Oh, yes.
Version correctly.
Okay.
I don't think this.
Huh?
No, these aren't the numbers with the current.
No, I don't think
CPI.
it's saved. No, not with the current CPI. Correct.
Hi, Jane. How about just some impressions in general? Is there one that kind of catches your eye that you like for any particular reason?
I kinda like this one, because it does give incentive to stay.
Okay. But kind of that mindset that you hit 9 years in the district,
Yeah.
you've made a commitment of your time and talents. And so it makes those annual increases possible.
Yeah, so CPI is still possible with this model.
Yeah, everyone except what we
Except the
currently
Except the top
have.
one.
Yeah, the one we currently have, which is the top one, that one would need to stay the same. And you know, just for illustration's sake, Shannon ran some numbers so this year, you know, the board approved 2.0% or something that looked a lot like that. And that was $117,000. I think Shannon indicated that just casting people forward on the current, what we have right now, the one that's at the top, exceeded, what was it, 100?
I think it was 100. Well, if you use the average of how much each step is, it's about 1750 to go up. But that's just the average. If you multiply that out by the number of staff we have, it was around 168,000 to everybody a step.
So,
Doesn't include any lien, just a step change.
so, you know, significantly larger amount of money than 117 for across the board for 2% this year for just one employee group. So, just for illustration's sake.
Can you scroll down to the one more?
Anybody need a drama meeting yet?
I guess I personally like this one because there's incentive every other year for a lane change, and it's not top heavy and it's not bottom heavy. So to me, this is a little more appealing. There's like a light at the end of the tunnel every single time. I mean, I like the one where it's loaded at the top, being new to the district, and it's encouraging to stay. But what happens, like Jess was saying, once you get to that year 3, then oops, you know, I'm not going to get a raise for now. I can maybe go someplace else, and I have 3 years experience under my belt.
Yeah.
And then all those blackout years, that'll be where you said the CPI will come into play.
Yeah, so if you were in year 2, so you were in your second year, but you were on that step 1, then the way you would get a raise during that year 2 would be the CPI increase.
And the CPI increase would be a yearly, hope to be a yearly.
Hope to be a yearly thing, and also has the potential to change yearly, kind of
Correct.
depending on what the,
Mhm.
you know, the Department of Labor sets as that figure. And, you know, just a quick illustration, in the half dozen years since Act 10 came online, you know, it's been as high as, I think, 3.25 or something like that, and it's been as low as about 0.2%. So it really a wide range in a short period of time.
The difference is about 549 to top end, I think, on this bottom one here versus,
Yeah, because there's just I just averaged out and then made
Right.
that last end a little bit, that last jump a little bit larger.
Well, and you said these aren't the exact numbers that it would be anyway,
No.
this is just a model using.
Yep.
Okay.
So the next time we would look at the actual numbers?
I'm happy with it.
So like
Well,
right now,
actually
we're
happy with
focusing
that
on
now.
Yep, how you want it
Step
structured. Correct. This is gonna be post CPI, we just need to be in line.
Until 9. I don't mind that one either. Can you scooch up to the next, to the one above it again? So that's essentially the same thing until year 9, and then it's, yeah.
If people are not going to be going over as quickly when we don't have to be gathering credits, is that something to do with the bottom of the graph for like the bachelor's lanes?
Why it's grayed out.
Well,
Yeah.
this compared to the next one down.
This one is just taking our current, what I did for that middle one was I took the current model and implemented it every other year for those first, you know, up until year 8, and then I just left it exactly the same as the current model. And I apologize, I don't know why in the current model those were grayed out. Maybe somebody who has some historical knowledge would know that.
You
We
mean
can
like
certainly
13
put-
and 14,
Yeah, we can certainly put numbers in there. If you want to put numbers in there, it would just be figuring out the difference between 10 and 11 and then applying that all the way down.
I'm just anticipating that potentially we'll have people not wanting to wait for the
Right.
Some people get
credits.
Yeah.
Now that there's no more credit requirements, how, I
Right.
think the way that I anticipate is you're going to be heavier on this side than you're going to be on this side going forward.
So that
Correct.
grayed out just wouldn't maybe make as much sense on the bottom anymore, like it maybe would have other.
And we,
So fill those in.
So
She
yeah,
said
so
she
if-
can fill those
yeah.
in.
So if you could fill, yeah. you
yeah,
could
those
fill
could be
those
filled in very easily. I don't know the numbers, but that's what it would look like, and then they become white cell.
Yeah,
I like that better.
I think that would make that one very appealing. If that part wasn't grayed out.
But would that be sustainable?
Because you're gonna have people all over, you know, at that, you're not gonna have everybody hit those years at the same time. And you're slowing it down in the front end to allow people to get staggered.
Yep.
So you don't have as many hitting those points at the same time.
Where were people scattered? Were they scattered getting down farther now? Or that was what you surveyed for?
And we haven't, I think, let me see how many answers we have. I think we can have it by the end of next week if we had over half the answers back.
I don't remember how many credits I have, I have to figure that out.
We are up to 60 responses, so I think we're short maybe about 25. Still, so if you guys could get the word out, I can send an email reminder too.
Can you guys see that this graph, we have a third of our staff that would be below any grade out.
Right.
Right, and there's no incentive, for the master, for credit.
There's no implemented by the state at this point as far as credit and stuff.
But you can if you want.
For this
Yeah,
model.
right,
if you
Yep.
wanted to.
Yep.
Right.
Because what this model is saying is that we value that enough to give you an increase for doing that. And that's what I think some of the other schools have done too, is
To keep current.
to keep it
Yep.
current in your education and in your field, even though the state doesn't require it, we still value it. That may change down the road, but right now, it's still there.
One time we talked about, we liked some school districts with after they'd been there so many years, that there was like a, you remember that one, they had like certain level, the line was up after every 3 years or every 5 years, and then there was a,
This was kind of my compromise to that.
That's what I was
They-
wondering.
Yeah,
Yeah.
rather than put those half levels in there where you received a middle
Mhm.
bump, then after you just now receive an increase every year for
Okay.
your service.
thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
He looked at so many, and then you're trying to bring it all together, and I'm glad your brain works like that.
A lot to take in.
Because I'm trying to make sure everybody who's said things to us about bring this up, that
Right.
we're
Right.
covering all that.
Yeah.
So. Sound of silence.
Lots of pondering going on.
Yeah.
So you have to pick one.
Well, I just think about it, and then, if you wanna email me, or I can send out just a short survey of 1, 2, 3, or 4,
Yeah.
and you can anonymously vote, if that's what you wanna do.
That work for you?
So this is
Sure.
3, now.
Yeah, I'll put them directly into the survey.
Okay.
Fill those numbers in with actual numbers, and then send it out. Okay.
Should we narrow it down to the top 2 and then we all vote down this stuff too?
That's what you would do.
Just
You
so
want 2, or you want 2,
it's not
3,
like just
4?
maybe only 4 people voting on
Yeah.
the top model.
Sure. Which ones you guys want?
You gotta have a discussion on the top 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have some time here. If you wanna take some time and have that conversation, let's do it.
I like this one.
Okay.
And then table, yeah, get them back on there.
I don't like this one. I understand.
I'm gonna scroll down to the other one.
People can be nice to have raises.
Which one do you like? First, which
Well,
one?
I liked the one, but when you guys explained your thought process on that, I was like, I get that.
Yeah.
Because I bet people say, what was wrong with the model that we had? You know, I mean, that's what people have said, or, you know, we never wanted it to be taken away, the first one that we had.
Right.
So, I don't know if that means, does that mean that you liked it, you know, or do you want it to be changed and you get silence? It's like nobody knows, it's hard to know. 'Cause
I think they just want something.
Yeah.
That's consistent,
Right.
that rewards what we haven't had over the last however many years, so.
I think the argument, from what I understand, is like that top number won't change if it's the current model.
Right.
Correct.
You know?
And so that's what's wrong with that model.
Yeah, and I mean, that would be into the well foreseeable future,
Mhm.
so not even for a year or 2 or something
Right.
like that. That is really an expensive way to go, and so, you know, commitment to that would be, it would be tough. It would be tough. It would be tough to honor that for teachers on an annual basis, and then do some of the other things we've talked about, like work with the other 2 employee groups, address facility needs, curriculum needs, technology needs. So, yeah, that, and so, wasn't here. I don't know the history firsthand, but my sense would be when money got tight here, because you'll recall it wasn't too many years ago, this district had a deficit of almost $1 million one year. I think they
Mhm.
probably just said, that's it, we're gonna put the brakes on here, and
That's what they did.
Well,
Then-
even before Act 10, there were
Yeah.
some years that were froze.
yeah. So, you know, you go back to some of the original intents that we talked about when this task force is where it started, it's to give people a sense of what future earning potential can look like. And freezing things for an indefinite amount of time is not a very accurate view.
And And I think it's important to note that in any of these models, you get the full amount in that subsequent year. So you skip a year, but then the next year you get what you would have gotten the year before, and then also that new amount. So you went from 36 to 40. Yeah, you skip the 40, the in between, but you get that when you get to the, we didn't take the lower number and put it into those cells. We left those cells exactly as they were before. So the top number didn't change. That's 65,000 by much. So.
It's just the way that it's dispersed and structured, yeah.
So you want these two, the one above this and then this one, or the first one and this one, or?
I kinda like this one and
I agree. These two?
Okay, see.
I'm gonna make it yellow. All right.
So you get an email with these two, and first choice, second choice.
And the top one, that's sustainable, like,
Well, pending.
well, yeah.
Pending.
I know,
Things that
I
happen.
questioned that too because of it, it's at the top end.
All right, well, that's what we'll do. So thank you, good job, good discussion, good consideration, and that's what we wanted to accomplish for today. And a really big and important step on this. So we'll get that vote, when are we looking at trying to meet again? Have you spotted anything on the calendar, Shannon?
I haven't captured this, or did we?
Well, we were talking about it yesterday because it fell in between that.
Oh, yeah, we did, didn't we?
The calendar
The
committee.
4th and the 18th, right?
That's what we put down.
Yep, the 4th and the 18th.
So is it just our group voting on these two then?
Yep.
Versus?
Yep,
Okay.
Because no one wants the 11th.
correct, yes.
Calendar is the 11th.
Calendars. I know.
So 2 future dates
I
then?
know, see, almost four.
Well, we kept we kept the 18th in case we needed it. We
Okay.
can shore up any last minute things because we will bring it to personnel on May 7th and
Alright.
board on May 21st.
Right.
Personnel, May 7th.
Yeah, and just kind of an update, so the other two task forces, the classified staff and the admin staff, working parallel to this, so all 3 task forces are in motion right now, so lots of good work going on around compensation for all employee groups right now. Okay, very good, well, thank you, have a good afternoon.
A little feedback about the survey that you sent out. I think staff were hoping to have added more commentary, like for years of experience, and I think there were some people that had questions about what they should be counting and shouldn't be counting. I know like Jess and Heather talked about 2 years where they were laid off, but subbing in the district and then came back, so they were let go of positions. And then I think like some other people mentioned being let go and then coming back. And so I think there was just a hope that they could have typed in besides just putting a number in the box. So I just wanted to provide
Yeah.
that feedback. When we looked at it, it looked like there was going to be that, but then when you actually took the survey, it was,
And I think in those situations, we probably, so when you left and came back,
I taught for 2 years in the district when
Okay.
I moved here. Had to have a full-time job, and then they came to me and they let 4 of us go because they had layoffs or whatever. So they didn't have positions for us, so I got a job in Shell Lake and worked there 5 years, whatever. When I came back, they said, we can only give you 5 years of experience, we can't count the 2 years that you worked for us. But with your survey question, it said how many years were you in the work for the district? Do I count those 2 years?
I guess I would say that if you were told that you can't count those years, I wouldn't count those years, because when you came back in, they gave you the 5 that was in play at the time, because that's my understanding, that was in play at the time. But, and those are individual, this is a broad, I agree, it should have been where you could type, but this was kind of a broad overview, because at this point, we're presenting a preliminary budget on April 2nd. I just needed to get some dollar
Sure.
figures around.
And I kinda said that, cause you had
Yeah.
talked about where like, people would be asked to come in and have
Like in this instance, we would
provide
have,
credit
yep,
and discussion about
we
it.
would have had probably a separate conversation about that, and
Yeah.
there's other people too that have gone on
Right.
maternity leave and come back, maybe taken an extended maternity leave, come back, and so it would be a matter of verifying that in the files, and so.
So that was just the only feedback, that I think
Okay.
like they were hoping to put something
Okay.
more than a number in, and then didn't have that opportunity, so,
And I told
kind
them,
of
if
responded
they
the
asked
same
me
way.
that, I told them to email you
Yep,
specifically.
and I did get emails and corresponded with maybe 3 staff members, I think. Yep.
Okay.
And I couldn't, because the PDP cycle, where we had said 6 credits per PDP cycle, that's not board approved, so that's not something that I could
Right.
put out there and
Right.
say. I mean, past practice has been that it was 6 credits before as well, and I just notified them to use past practice for now, and that we would let them know in the future if it changed, because it's not board approved, so.
One other thing that people asked about, it's just come up kind of consistently, is when staff aren't taking on extra things during the day. What Heather was out yesterday and her whole class didn't get covered, and so someone else took her entire class the whole day, and I said that I would let the committee here know, but there are some instances where staff, are going above and beyond their workload,
Right.
taking on either extra kids in a handful or extra entire classes, and they're just wondering if there's something if that's something we can look at, because it's happening kind of frequently where there's just not a sub. And what do? I mean, you make do and you make it work, but that it's
Yeah.
something we,
I had a sub
Are
and
doing
then
often.
she dropped it sometime
Yeah,
between
and-
midnight and
Yep.
6 time school started when I.
So that's the second time we had that question come up, and actually, Dave and I were just able to connect on it for very briefly before the meeting, so I don't think we have an
I
answer.
think we can maybe talk about it at our next meeting. a
Yeah,
little
put it
bit.
on the agenda to talk about.
I've always questioned at the high school too, is
Teachers,
And then
there's
middle
no
school
sub
as
no
well.
coverage
teachers
or-
probably,
yeah.
teachers
Yeah.
covering,
where we
teachers.
use- Yep.
Mhm. That's fine, yeah.
Just if there wasn't a
Over.
sub available.
Or if there was a way that we could make the subbing more, maybe more competitive, or maybe increase, go above what our others are, but.
That was one personnel. We looked at this last year, when we looked
What
at
is substitute?
substitute pay rates,
I don't know if they're-
substitute, the certified staff rate was looked at, and I believe we increased it by $5.
I think so.
We can always bring it back and, have that conversation again and go back out and look at the comparables and see
As
what
long as we're
others.
being competitive,
I can't remember, I know that I have the data because I pulled it for the Heart of the North, and it's something they look at every year, we get that survey. I just think it's a problem everywhere.
It is a
Subs-
problem
subs-
everywhere.
Because of the
Yeah.
labor market, like
Yeah.
we were talking about right now, the labor market's good, so you don't have a lot of substitutes. 5 years ago, it wasn't that good, so. But if it's something you guys want, it doesn't hurt to put it on there, if you want to talk about it, but we'll for sure put the teacher cover teacher on the next
Yeah, we can
agenda.
talk about that.
Yep.
The whole issue of subs is, Shannon's indicated, that's a personnel committee
Yeah.
discussion, but we should talk about the coverage, so.
Yeah. Looking for something else? We have that.
All
So
right.
probably, I think shoring up the committee's stuff and maybe having an example of what that looks
Mhm.
like to bring forward. That was the other thing that we had decided on in the last meeting, and I can't remember. Those are just committees. I'll have to go back and look at the notes. All right. Sorry.
The overload, still.
Overloads,
Got
yes,
some,
thank
still
you.
waiting for some information to come in on that, right?
Yep.
Yep. Next meeting, we'll have something
Sounds
on
good.
it.
Yep.
All right, thanks, everybody, have a good evening.
Thank you.
It's too dark.
Have a good spring break if I don't see you before.
You like that? Dark?
I have my classroom lights, I only
Were you-
have one set.